What if being alone isn't the problem? What if the thing you've been quietly worried about isn't actually a problem at all? What if enjoying your own company, needing space, feeling drained by constant interaction isn't a flaw, but a signal? Because somewhere along the way, you were taught that being alone too much means something is wrong with you, that you're missing out, that you're becoming distant, that you're different. But here's the uncomfortable question no one really asks. What if the real issue is not that you enjoy being alone, but that the world you're stepping away from doesn't feel like it understands you in the first place? You feel peace, but also something else. When you're alone, there's a kind of peace that's hard to explain. No pressure to perform, no need to explain yourself, no noise that pulls you away from your own thoughts, just quiet, just space, just you. And for a while, it feels perfect. But if you're honest, there are moments when that peace feels heavy, not loud, not painful, just a quiet emptiness that lingers in the background. It's confusing, isn't it? How something that feels so safe can also feel slightly isolating at the same time. And you don't talk about it, because even you're not sure how to explain it.
Why you feel different. Your brain is wired for depth, not noise. You were never meant for constant noise. Not the kind that fills rooms, and definitely not the kind that fills conversations. While others can move quickly, jumping from topic to topic, laughing, reacting, speaking without thinking, your mind doesn't work like that. It goes deeper. You don't just hear words, you analyze tone. You don't just see expressions, you notice subtle shifts most people miss. And while that sounds like a strength, it comes with a cost. Because depth requires energy. Every interaction becomes something more than just interaction. It becomes interpretation, awareness, emotional processing. That's why, after a while, you feel drained in ways you can't fully explain. Not because you're weak, but because your brain is doing more work than it looks like on the surface. You're not antisocial. You're just not designed for shallow noise. Overthinking isn't a flaw. It's hyper-awareness. You've probably been told this before. You think too much. But what if that's not the full story? What if what people call overthinking is actually your mind trying to understand things more completely? You replay conversations, not because you're broken, but because you're searching for meaning. You analyze situations because you notice patterns others ignore. You question yourself because you're aware that emotions are complex, not simple. This isn't weakness. It's hyper-awareness. But here's the part that makes it difficult. When your awareness is high, so is your sensitivity to everything around you. Energy, tone, intentions, even silence. And over time, this constant awareness becomes overwhelming. So your mind looks for relief, and it finds it in solitude. Not because you want to escape people, but because it's the only place where your thoughts can finally slow down. You don't hate people. You hate superficiality. It might seem from the outside like you don't like being around people, but that's not really true, is it?
You don't hate people. You just struggle with what most interactions have become. Small talk that feels empty, conversations that stay on the surface, connections that never really go anywhere. And after a while, it starts to feel exhausting. Because you're not looking for constant interaction. You're looking for something real, something honest, something deep, something that doesn't require you to filter yourself just to fit in. But those kinds of connections are rare. So instead of forcing yourself into spaces that feel unnatural, you choose solitude.
not as rejection, but as self-respect. Because being alone feels better than being surrounded by people who don't truly see you.
You don't hate people. You hate superficiality. It might seem, from the outside, like you don't like being around people. But that's not really true, is it? You don't hate people. You just struggle with what most interactions have become. Small talk that feels empty. Conversations that stay on the surface. Connections that never really go anywhere. And after a while, it starts to feel exhausting. Because you're not looking for constant interaction. You're looking for something real. Something honest. Something deep. Something that doesn't require you to filter yourself just to fit in. But those kinds of connections are rare. So instead of forcing yourself into spaces that feel unnatural, you choose solitude. Not as rejection, but as self-respect. Because being alone feels better than being surrounded by people who don't truly see you. The exhaustion you never talk about. There's a kind of exhaustion you don't show. Not the physical kind, but the emotional weight of constantly adjusting yourself just to exist around other people. You smile when you don't feel like it. You nod even when you're not fully engaged. You say, "I'm fine," when your mind is somewhere else entirely. And after a while, it starts to feel like you're performing, not connecting. Because every interaction comes with an invisible checklist. Am I saying the right thing? Did I sound weird just now? Did they misunderstand me? It's subtle, but it's constant. And the hardest part? Most people don't even notice the effort you're putting in. So when you finally step away, when you choose to be alone, it doesn't feel like isolation. It feels like relief. Like you can finally put everything down and just exist without being watched, measured, or misunderstood. When being alone becomes emotional armor, at some point, being alone stopped being just a preference. It became protection. Because whether you admit it or not, you've been misunderstood before. Maybe you opened up and it wasn't received the way you hoped. Maybe you trusted someone and they didn't handle it carefully. Maybe you showed your real thoughts and felt judged for them. And moments like that stay with you. Not loudly, but deeply. So your mind learns something important. It's safer to keep things to yourself. Safer to stay in your own space. Safer to not rely too much on anyone. And slowly, without realizing it, solitude turns into armor. It shields you from disappointment, from rejection, from having to explain yourself over and over again. But here's the quiet truth. Armor protects you, but it also keeps people out. Even the ones who might actually understand you.